Lord of the Rings is overrated and new authors need to stop rewriting traditional fantasy.
Oh gosh.
Robin Hobb is overrated. The Poppy War trilogy is just edgy young adult fantasy. I kind of get what this person is hinting at. Unpopular opinions. You guys seem to absolutely love these, and I've had lots of guests on here like Mike's Book Review, Fun Fantasy Books, Bookborn, Patrick Leo, Jed Hearn, and today I'm honored to have one of my favorite booktubers, Dr. Fantasy, Philip Chase.
Oh.
You disagree? You're not Dr. Fantasy.
That was premature.
Now, if you don't know, Phil Chase is also the author of the Dan trilogy. But before we start, Philip, do you have an unpopular opinion you would like to share with us?
Okay, Johan, I'm gonna get spicy right from the get-go here.
Let's go.
And this is probably gonna make me very unpopular, but I think that using the primary criterion of enjoyment as the basis for rating and reviewing, this is actually a very flawed basis for rating and reviewing books. Basically, I look into Goodreads sometimes just for my own amusement. I look at some of the great classics, I look at, Hamlet or Paradise Lost or Middlemarch or something. They have low ratings in Goodreads. Yep. And a lot of the time, I suspect it's because people did not enjoy reading those books. But yep. Is it the book's fault if the reader isn't ready yet for the book? So instead of giving Hamlet a 1 star, maybe you should work on your 1-star vocabulary and reading comprehension.
That is actually a very interesting opinion for sure. I think especially when we now live in a culture where people like me that don't have a degree in literature can create a channel and gain an audience, you definitely have a big of influence. But I never went to university and studied how to critique literature and how to read books or anything. There's a discussion to have if people really should be listening to booktubers that actually don't have the qualifications to understand literature, I suppose.
Well, you could come out with all kinds of analogies. Like if I need my car fixed, I'm not just going to ask someone off the street to do it. I'm going to ask somebody who knows how to fix cars. Or if I need to have brain surgery, I'm not going to ask you. I'm sure you're very smart, but you haven't been trained in brain surgery. So, but no, I think it's great that there are places like Goodreads for people to share their reading experiences. But I just wish that there was more of an attempt to just nudge people toward, let's say, a greater array of criteria other than just, oh, did I enjoy this? Nope. So 1 star. And is that the book's fault again? Or is that something to do with me, the reader? And maybe that's not something, maybe I'm wrong that many people are reflecting on that. But I have a feeling that a lot of people just say, nope, 1 star, I didn't like it, So.
Yeah. And we will go to the opinion, and I had to include this as the first opinion because I'm sure you'll probably have lots to say, but let's get into it. The first opinion, the hottest take, Lord of the Rings is overrated and new authors need to stop rewriting traditional fantasy.
Oh gosh. Oh, was this one created just for me? Oh. I mean, I would disagree with the first part, highly disagree, but actually, and I don't think that people should stop trying to write quote unquote traditional fantasy, because what does that even mean? The fact of the matter is, if people are reading what's traditional fantasy, then people can be writing it. If there's an audience for it, why not? But just slavishly imitating Tolkien, bad idea, of course. I wouldn't call Tolkien or Lord of the Rings overrated. I would say that reading tastes have changed a lot since Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings. So yes, it has much more description and exposition than modern fantasy tends to have, because and I think a lot of that has to do with the influence of screens, frankly, television, movies, internet, you name it. A lot of people prefer their stories to be more streamlined to kind of match the pacing of what you would get on a screen. So a lot of readers lack the patience to read something like Lord of the Rings with all its description.
No, I agree with you. Definitely your first opinion about Lord of the Rings being overrated or not. I've only read the series once, which I probably should have read it more than once, to be honest. But actually, I enjoyed, if we just think about enjoyment here, I enjoyed the movies more than the books, only due to, as you said, the pacing, it being slightly more streamlined. But yeah, I definitely respect Lord of the Rings very, very highly. When it comes to the second part, I wonder what he means as like rewriting traditional fantasy. Like if we have a chosen one, is that traditional fantasy? Or a farm boy to hero, is that traditional fantasy? Yeah, I suppose if we see some tropes coming again and again and again, it can get quite generic. But a lot of fantasy I read in newer times, like The Faithful and the Fallen, or even your book, The Way of it Down, it does have that sense of familiarity, but it also feels fresh. And I often find that is a really good way to have your take on a lot of these traditional tropes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And basically what you said, I think, simply confirms my feeling about tropes. Now, a trope isn't bad or good, it's just a tool. You can write a really great chosen one trope still. It's not like that's not possible any longer. So I just feel like people kind of have this knee-jerk reaction. Oh, I hate chosen one, you know. Well, yeah. What if somebody does it really well? Are you just going to hate it just because, you know? So
yeah.
I feel like that's often an unfortunate tendency, is just sort of outright dismissal without considering, well, maybe this could be done well still, you know?
Robin Hobb is overrated.
Okay.
Oh, wait. This is a hard disagree. I actually think that she is underrated, if I'm being absolutely honest. Now, I know Robin Hobb. She is very famous in the fantasy niche. Lots of people love her and rave about her, recommend her books on BookTube and so on. But we have some massive names in fantasy like George R. R. Martin, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King. All those names people know. If you go out to the general public, most people have never heard about Robin Hobb. And I think she should arguably be up there with the all-time greats, at least from what I read. But what do you think?
You said it beautifully. I think that Robin Hobb is underrated in the sense that she should be read more. Now, maybe the reason for that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The fact is, you have to invest in her books. You know, they're not easy, page turners. That's for sure. I will admit that.
Yeah.
But so if that's what you're looking for, don't go to Realm of the Elderlings. But if you're looking for a deep, beautifully moving story that is going to give you such an incredible connection to the characters and such investment in their relationships and what happens to them, and will be one of the greatest emotional journeys you can ever go on, then maybe you should pick up Realm of the Elderlings. But you tend to get what you pay for, so if you got to make that investment, and Hobb does up front, make you, there's a lot of tea drinking, and there's a lot of getting to know the characters and getting to know the world, and that all has payoff. That has such a beautiful payoff. So I would just say, if you have the patience for it, Realm of the Elderlings, it should be. I absolutely agree. Talked about as among the very greatest series ever written in the fantasy genre.
Most grimdark is mid to bad. Writers just make their book brutal and call it that. Good grimdark has nuance and finesse. Abercrombie has that. Most of his copycats don't.
Can I do both again? Can I do both?
Yeah, I think you can do both in this one. Because there's definitely some truth in it that I think meaningless, like violence, and often it's discussed about like sexual violence as well.
Sure.
When is it justified to have those scenes in your books? And if they don't serve a purpose, then I kind of will agree with people like this one. So I suppose it all comes back to the purpose of why would you include a brutal scene?
Okay.
What do you think?
So the part that I strongly agree with is that Abercrombie is a brilliant grimdark writer, and that he makes the bleakness of his stories tolerable through his brilliant humor. I mean, I will just sing Abercrombie's praises all day long. So absolutely agree with that. Same. The part that I can't agree with is in the first part. I don't know if most grimdark is mid to bad, because I haven't read most grimdark. I've read a fair amount, and most of what I read is not mid to bad. It's actually pretty good, I would say. Yeah. And to me, grimdark is not about violence so much. Although I will say most grimdark I've read is more honest about violence than most other fantasy is. Most other fantasy tends to idealize violence, whereas grimdark is honest about it. So it makes people uncomfortable. Yeah, violence is uncomfortable.
Malazan isn't that complicated if you just look at it more like an anthology.
Okay.
I haven't read all of Malazan, only the first 1.5, but maybe if I actually thought about it as an anthology, I would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, what's your take on this? You have read the whole series and all the books in this universe.
Yeah, I've read everything published so far. Malazan is I've made no secret of it. It's my favorite series of all time. I like that idea that you could approach it like an anthology. And I feel like people often think of this huge thing, and this is true of so many things in life, not just Malazan. They think of this huge thing, oh my gosh, how can I do that? But if you just take it one step at a time, it becomes much easier to do and more enjoyable, because you don't have this sense of dread. Oh, I have to read all these books. No, you just have to read the sentence that's right in front of you right now. That's how you get things done, you know? So I love this idea. I think it's great. Hard agree.
All right, but I had to include one more Malazan opinion. Steven Eriksen doesn't do great character work. I mean, how can all these characters be philosophers?
Okay.
Again, I'll have to leave this to you because you have read more than I have.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate the laugh, but I'm going to have to disagree with that. They're not all philosophers, unless, well, I mean, I guess everybody's a bit of a philosopher in life. I mean, everybody has moments of reflection, but there are certainly characters that are not self-aware, that are not reflective at all in Malazan. And then there are characters who are, and I love those moments myself when Eriksen gets quote unquote philosophical. I feel like it's just a part of the narrative for me. But everybody has different tastes and levels of engagement that they prefer. So I
think also maybe what this person is also referring to is that, at least in my experience, Eriksen, he writes characters in a way that I don't think I've ever come across anywhere else in the fantasy genre, really. It's very hard to know whom to trust or not to trust.
Yes.
And it's also hard to know exactly what the role of a character may be in the bigger plot. I think a lot of like fantasy we read, we know, oh, this is the king, that is the chosen one, this person is going to have a redemption arc, and so on. But with a lot of, at least I found in Malazan, meet all these characters and you don't initially understand what their purpose is of their arcs, why are they here, and so on. And that, I think, can make it maybe more interesting, but also more challenging, because you're a bit confused about why are we following these characters everywhere.
Yeah, you said it beautifully, Johan. That is actually very true, what you just said, and that's deliberate on Eriksen's part. And Esselmont does something similar. The fact of the matter is, in real life, nobody goes around wearing a sign, I'm the good guy, or or cackles and twirls their mustache to say, oh, I'm the villain. These are conventions that we're accustomed to, particularly if we're genre readers like us. You know, we are used to reading a series where at least there is, if not one hero, a group of characters that we follow along with and kind of root for. Malazan doesn't give you that. Malazan, to me, gives you actually a more true sense of a person's place in the universe.
Don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but Age of Madness trilogy is better than the original First Law trilogy.
That's easy.
Oh, we fully agree.
That's easy.
Excellent. I feel like actually it's becoming more and more actually popular now to say that Age of Madness is better than the original First Law trilogy. But yeah, I just found the Age of Madness trilogy to be absolutely riveting. I gave every single book in that trilogy 5 stars. Yeah. Incredible character work, and one trope or one thing I loved about the trilogy and just the world building is that Joe Abercrombie, he actually allows the world to progress. Like, we're moving into a steampunk era, and I find that not enough fantasy authors actually allow their world to progress when it comes to technology and stuff like that. So even just for that aspect, I loved Age of Madness. But yeah, it's just so dramatic, so many gut-wrenching moments in that trilogy, and it's in my top 3 trilogies of all time when people ask me. So
I will put out one little caveat, which is it's possible that some of the characters from the original trilogy are still my favorites because they're just so beloved. I've spent so much time with those characters, and they're so deeply flawed and quirky and Abercrombian that I just love those characters. You know, Logan and Glocta and Jazal and all those guys. But that said, I feel like Abercrombie has improved a lot as a writer, and there are 2 big things about Age of Madness that I feel make it his best so far. One being, he really did more thoughtfully incorporate theme into Age of Madness than in any of his previous writing. It's very Dickensian in a sense, and I love that. In the sense that he's looking at class friction and conflict. He's looking at what the dislocation, you mentioned the evolution of society, the dislocation that results from that. And you have some people taking advantage of that and others who are losers. And And I just thought he did a brilliant job with that. And then also the female characters. They're just several really complex, interesting, compelling female characters in Age of Madness. And I don't think you can say that about First Law, the original trilogy.
Many of Sanderson's characters have the same voice regardless of series or era.
I mean,
I will go with disagree on this one, but I think like tonally, a lot of his stories are quite similar. But when it comes to his characters, I do feel like they are different. Like Shallan, Kaladin, Vin, and Elend, they're not the same characters, and I would definitely agree with that one. But it has that same vibe, like Mistborn and Stormlight, with how it's written.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with disagree as well, only because I think you're right that there are different voices. They're not as vivid as, say, Abercrombie's characters. They have very distinct voices. So
or Robin Hobb.
They're not terrible characters, and I do feel that those main characters do have distinct voices enough. And you said something else. I think there is a tonal similarity in his writing, whether it be Mistborn or Stormlight Archive. So that's there. But that's kind of just saying that Brandon Sanderson sounds like Brandon Sanderson,
It is, isn't it? The Poppy War trilogy is just edgy young adult fantasy. I kind of get what this person is hinting at, but whenever people start calling the Poppy War trilogy YA, which surprisingly, there's a lot of people that say it's YA. I just cannot agree with that. Yes, it does have an underdog, it has a young female protagonist and so on, but just because you have those elements, it doesn't make it YA. So I would definitely disagree with this one. Just because,
again, the way it's worded, I'm going to disagree, but that doesn't mean I don't have criticisms of the Poppy War trilogy. I'm glad I read it, and I think there's some really important themes that R.F. Kuang is wrestling with in there, and there are some real great virtues to the trilogy. But I do feel that there's some narrative clunkiness here and there that I talked about when I reviewed all three books, and I felt there was a little too much being made of it, honestly, in terms of it got all kinds of praise, which great, if people liked it, but I feel like there wasn't much talk about the flaws, which are fairly stark. I feel that I have my criticisms, but I wouldn't call it just edgy YA. Funny way to put it, but it's not how I would frame my critique of it, though.
Jade Legacy was the worst book in the Greenbone saga, or the trilogy. I have to definitely disagree on this one. But okay. I'll allow you to go first on this one.
So I think I may know where this person is coming from, and I have my criticisms once again of Jade Legacy. It's not my favorite in the trilogy. I think Jade War is probably my favorite. It's the most cohesive. Jade City does a great job of introducing Janloon and the characters and the world and the magic and all that. Jade War initially for me started out a bit slow because of the expansion of the story. But then I really got into it and I thought, wow, there's some really cool, iconic moments in this book that Fondley's just done a brilliant job of leading up to. Yeah. And what you have in Jade Legacy, to me, is you have the iconic, cool moments, but you don't have the lead up. It got sort of put aside because of the big time jumps. So Jade Legacy felt very episodic to me, almost like a TV show.
Like a TV show, yeah.
So I did not... Although those moments did grab me, so I'm not saying it was a bad book. I just don't think it was as cohesive as its predecessors. And I feel that, and maybe Fondley could just tell me to go take a hike, but I think that it would have been cool if she had divided Jade Legacy into like 3 books or something in order to give justice to those really cool, iconic moments. Give us the lead up to them so they would feel even more compelling. But that's just my opinion.
No, I think that's a very valid opinion. I think what I just loved about Jade Legacy, and also what kind of blew my mind, is that it didn't have this typical climax or endpoint per se. This conflict, it just kept on going and going, and there was multiple climaxes throughout that last book. Yep. And I found that very interesting because I think a lot of fantasy is quite well known for having a long build up, and at the end we have a massive battle and everything hits the fan. But in Jade Legacy, that was not the case. It was a conflict that just went on and on. Yeah, exactly, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. And I think just the audacity to write a novel that spans over 10 years and then just showing how this conflict kept evolving, it kept coming back. It just really blew my mind. I found it really, really compelling, but I kind of understand that it maybe felt more episodic. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that criticism from someone that loves Malazan, that has
Yeah.
this epic scope.
Touche. Yeah.
Touche. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Johan. I had a blast. This was fun. I hope I didn't step on too many toes, throwing around my opinions. But this was a great bit of fun. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're still here and you want more? Well, the good news is that if you want more and you want to support me, then I do have a Patreon. Now, if you didn't know, then I have a Viking book club where every single month we read one book together, and you can be the one that can put the book forward. Last month we read this book, and this month we're reading this book. And at the moment we are trialing having Zoom book club discussions after everyone has read the book. So also if you want to discuss a book with me and other like-minded people, then the Patreon is the way to go. Now, in addition to getting your name in my videos, joining the Viking book club, potentially getting art cards depending on what tier you are, I am also basically spending around 100% of my Patreon income to reinvest back into my channel. Since I launched my Patreon, I have had more than 30 videos professionally edited. And just to give you an example, from September 2023 to March 2024, I have spent more than $1,500 into video editing with the aim to consistently post high quality videos for you to enjoy. It is much appreciated.